I'll move.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the agenda. Any changes or anything? All those in favor? Oh,
I'd like to pull 4C.
That's consent.
that's the next one, Kevin. Run just a general agenda.
Thank you.
Okay. Motion and second to approve the agenda. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 4, consent agenda.
I'll move.
Second.
Motion and second on the consent agenda.
Like
Okay,
4C.
okay, pull 4C. Motion and second, consent agenda, A, B, D, E, F. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 4C.
So I did reach out to our city administrator, our finance person. I would just like to have an explanation as to why this person resigned after only being in the position for a year.
Kim has taken a position with better benefits than the city can offer her.
That's
Yeah,
it.
from what I understand, excuse me,
Please.
Mic on? Thank you.
anyway, from what I understand, just through, little conversations, it's more, personal time that she needs for her family. That's the main reason. That's about all I can disclose of what I
Okay.
know. It's more family related than anything.
Okay. Kevin, another question?
Yeah, so like, we put a lot of effort into onboarding people, and, whether it's cops, public works, finance, whatever, I mean, we put time into onboarding people. These are good jobs. Would you agree?
I
This
would
is a
ag-
good place to work?
I would agree.
And so it's frustrating to have someone who, Kim, I mean, I interacted with her on many times, a good employee, and now she's gone. So just a frustration point. I don't have a solution, it's an observation.
I had the same conversation with Therese. It's frustrating because we do an awful lot of getting them on board. Lori trains and goes through the things, but at the same time, it's their choice.
No, I get that.
Okay.
It's just like, that's all I have.
Can I get a motion to move on 4C?
I'll move.
Second?
Motion and second approving 4C of consent agenda. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 5. Tammy Ogden with Northland Security. Whoop, whoop.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. There's 2 items that I'm here to present on this evening. The first,
Is there a mic on?
a button, there might be a button to push to. Is it on?
Oh,
Yeah, there you go.
Colleen.
Thank you.
That's how you
There's-
have to stand like this now.
Yes, I will lean in. There's 2 items I'm here to present on. The first item that is before you relates to the sale of the 2022 A bonds, and I'll speak to that first, Mayor and Council. The city is issuing the 2022 A bonds to finance street improvements, a portion of the new community center, a new fire truck, and to pay the cost of issuing the bonds. The tax abatement portion of the bonds, and I will get into the rates in a moment, is structured over 20 years, and that par amount is $6,125,000. The improvement portion is structured over a shorter term, 15 years, and the equipment portion is structured over 9 years. Mayor, Council, as I see you looking at your notes, because the bonds were just priced this morning, there is not a document in your packet. There is a bond sales summary that you may have in front of you. If you don't, I'm going to verbally speak to it.
I did give him the finance summary, was sitting on the Diaz for the meeting.
I will give you a moment to, Mayor, council, do you have a copy of the bond sale summary? It might be easier as I go through this. Thank you. So to speak to the results, the method of sale was a negotiated sale, Northland Securities serving as underwriter. The pricing opinion by the municipal advisor was provided by Government Capital Securities out of Minneapolis. Prior to the issuance of the bonds, and as I was before you with the authorizing this sale, we did recommend that the city seek a rating on these bonds with Standard & Poor's, who rates the city's existing outstanding bonds. That rating of AA- was affirmed. Following this agenda item, I am going to give another presentation on the debt study. I will speak more to that rating, including some comparison to other cities at that time. With respect to the final true interest cost, which is what is used to evaluate the sale, the final true interest cost at 3.38%. The market has moved in your favor since you last considered this item on July 5th. At that time, we had estimated 4.21 for the entire series. The final amount is at 3.38%. With that, Mayor and Council, there's additional information in that bond sale summary that I can speak to if there are questions, but I will close my comments on the 2022A bonds and the consideration of the resolution awarding the sale.
Councilors, questions? Looking for a
Move to
motion.
approve the sale.
Yeah.
Second.
Motion and second, resolution 2022-39, issuance and sale of gold bonds, series 2022A. Any other questions or concerns? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed, motion does carry. Now, debt management study?
Now the debt management study. I have a presentation to go through. There are about 15 or so slides that I'll walk through, if that is able to be brought up on the screen at this time.
Yep.
There we go. This is an annual presentation, and I would note, while Northland completes a debt study, your city staff does a comprehensive job of managing your debt, so the staff is not relying on Northland to complete this debt study. It's really an opportunity for some checks and balances for us to independently summarize and review and provide this presentation, but I would note that the city does an excellent job of managing your own outstanding debt and tracking it at a very detailed level. So just know that while I am giving a summary based upon our outside review of it, your staff does maintain a comprehensive debt study. With respect to the approach, that is an important part of the approach. While we have comprehensive information on the city's outstanding debt, there's certain information that we don't have once debt is issued. When I say we, Northland Securities. For example, special assessments. When you issue bonds, there's assumptions for what the total amount is that you are assessing, but the actual timing of the collection of that is always different. There's prepaids as property is sold, there's sometimes delinquent, and that allows you to manage that overall tax levy. So we take that into account. The study approaches to work with city staff to determine where you are at with those non-tax revenues in order to project the future tax revenue. We look at the outstanding obligations and the source of repayment. The debt study that was in your packet included preliminary estimates for the 2022A bonds. I would note it actually came in a little bit less, so those amounts are higher than what the final amount was. And I'm also going to talk about the credit rating at the end. So a lot of words on here really to speak to the purpose of this. It is to look at your outstanding debt in a comprehensive way. It includes the existing debt and managing those other sources of revenue to not be on autopilot with that tax levy. And the city has had a long history of managing your debt in a very detailed way. I'd note the last comment on this slide that the study is built around identified key assumptions, including assumptions for those future revenues. We make assumptions that those special assessments will come in at a certain rate and timing without delinquency, for example. So those are key assumptions that could have impact on those tax levy projections. As I noted, there is communication between Northland and staff as we work on this, but The city does not rely on Northland to prepare this. The city is doing this as well, so really it's a check and balance. And I would note, the city is not charged any fee for this. With respect to an overview, and I would note, including with S&P, that the city demonstrates strong financial management of its debt obligations. Not all city and city staff maintain their own debt studies in a comprehensive way. St. Joe does do that. The bond rating specifically from S&P, and this is current because they recently reviewed your city and rated the 2022A bonds, points to that strong management. The rapid amortization of debt, that word amortization simply means how quickly are you paying back that principal, and I'll have some charts on that in a moment. And then that last point, a very important one for the city's rating, ample budgetary flexibility in line with your fund balance policy and very strong liquidity. When S&P is rating the city, they're rating from an investor standpoint, what is the strength of the city to meet its debt obligations, and that strong liquidity allows you to deal with unforeseen events that may occur from time to time. Nate, you gotta reboot tomorrow.
Kinda love those, right?
This chart, and this was in the debt study, is showing the tax levy for debt service. This includes your existing debt, and it includes the 2022 debt at an estimated amount from last week. So you can see that there is some planned increase because of projects that you're planning, but, and again, this is tax levy, this isn't total debt, but then the moderating of that. Now, certainly from year to year, you look at your capital improvement plans, including the amount to be assessed, which impacts this, but this is a projection at a point in time. The total outstanding debt, the top of this bar represents, and this is inclusive of an estimate for the 22 bonds, which came in very close, is that you're at about, I'm rounding, at about 27 million. And the reason it slopes down is because of that rapid amortization of your debt, the repayment of it. And I will have a chart in a moment on that. Where does the revenue come from for St. Joe to repay that debt? And this is looking over the term of it. You can see a majority of that from sales tax revenue. While the sales tax revenue were not pledged to the 2022A bonds because the city does not have authority to issue bonds that are with a pledge of sales tax, the city's intent and plan and projection is that the bonds issued for the community center will be repaid with sales tax revenue. And that is reflected in this chart. But I would note those bonds were issued as general obligation bonds with the pledge of tax levy. The largest portion, which is true for most cities, for the repayment of your debt comes from tax levy, about a third of the revenue to repay debt coming from tax levy. Then you can see that rounded out by your utility revenue. The debt includes the debt issued by St. Cloud, of which the city has an obligation from your sanitary sewer fund to help make that commitment and payment. Special assessments being just at about 10%, a little over. Here's the chart I was referencing on the amortization of the debt, and this is something that S&P looks at as well because they give you an additional bump because of your rapid amortization of your debt. And you can see by year 2041, presently 100% of your debt would be repaid, but even in that mid-range, you know, by year 2030, you're at 78%. That is a very rapid amortization of your debt, and that is reflected in how you fund your street improvements too, and you levy your assessments. So that's very, from a credit standpoint, a very credit positive. Now I have a few slides that show those other sources of revenue. So this is debt service paid by water revenue. In the next few years, most of that debt is going away. That is supported by water revenue. Here's the debt supported by net revenues of the sanitary sewer fund. And again, this includes your obligation related to debt issued by St. Cloud as part of that agreement. And you can see you have a few years of payments, so you get to 2030, and then really that falls off significantly.
I have a question, just, so we talked a little bit about, does this include Foley and what they're doing?
I was just gonna bring that up. So the city of Foley, this does not reflect the changes once the city of Foley connects and starts taking over some of our debt. So
Okay,
until that actually happens, we didn't wanna show those
So it should
projections,
come
so
down a little bit.
they should come
Okay.
down.
Yep.
Mhm.
Mayor, council member, I would note that did come up on the rating call too, and we talked about that with the rating agencies, because again, that's a credit positive, because that'll be a reduction in your debt, because there'll be more cities sharing in that cost.
Great.
Debt service paid by special assessments, so you issue bonds from time to time, improvement bonds that include a pledge of tax levy, as well as special assessments levied against those benefiting property. As those assessments are collected, when they're pledged to bonds, they are deposited into the debt service fund. This next chart, and the reason it looks kind of funny and flat, this is the sales tax revenue. So the 2022 A bonds, as I noted, were issued as a bond supported by tax levy, but it is the city's intent on an annual basis to cancel any levy related to the community center and to use sales tax revenue to deposit into the debt service fund in lieu of levying property taxes. And that, because of the term of those bonds that were just issued, that's why you see that fairly constant bar on this chart. Now switching gears to talk about the credit rating. So the city's rating is from Standard & Poor's Global Ratings, and you are assigned a AA-. The credit is a forward-looking opinion about the city's credit worthiness. S&P doesn't rate the city per se, they rate individual bonds, and when they rate your 2022 bonds, they affirm the rating on your existing outstanding bonds. The rating opinion reflects their view of your ability to repay that debt. That AA- is a excellent rating, and I'm going to give you a chart here in a moment comparing to other Minnesota cities. Here, I won't read that, but for some of the council members, I know when I've been here in the past, I've been asked this question about the different categories, so I give you some information at your convenience you can read through. But again, you're in that mid-range, that AA category. The next chart is a pie chart that simply shows for Minnesota cities, and this changes constantly because cities are getting rated and sometimes downgraded, upgraded. But at a point in time, that S&P of 307 Minnesota cities with a rating at or above A-, and as of April 6th, they don't always publish this, we request this periodically. So you can see at your AA-, there are 68, and you can see the size of that pie slice of Minnesota cities with that AA- rating. There are 27 cities with the highest rating by S&P in that AAA category. And again, that is a point in time for the AAA category. That has not changed in recent months, so that 27 is still where it's at. The next category up from that AA- is that AA category. So there's 64 cities with one notch above where St. Joe is, and then one notch above that at the AA+, there are 41 cities with that rating as of point in time. And again, this changes periodically as cities seek ratings and rating actions are taken. With that, Mayor and Council, that concludes my comments on the debt study. There was a lot of detailed numbers and information in that report. I just wanted to give you a general summary and to reassure you of your staff's due diligence on continuing to monitor the city's debt and the repayment of that debt. Mayor, Council, happy to take any questions that you may have for me.
Anyone?
Could we go back to chart 2?
Chart 2. Oh, chart 1.
Oh, chart 2, excuse me.
Chart 2.
Yeah,
My apologies.
There.
this would be to Tammy and to Lori. I mean, this is a snapshot of our current situation.
This is the existing,
Yeah, so
Debt
how
at
much debt are
22
we gonna
as-
issue in 2023, 2024, 2025? I mean, I look at this amortization, yeah, it all goes down, but we're looking at issuing other debt going forward, yes?
We do, and we look at that when we're looking at the engineers' projects. There's not a significant amount that we think into 2023, but 2024, there's a couple big projects that are coming up. So, yes, this is a snapshot in time of where we're at with the existing, including the 2022 issue. You know, the amount of the issue each year can fluctuate, so I think 2023 will be a little bit lower, but like I said, 2024 is gonna be a little higher again. if we move forward with some of those projects.
Projects like what?
Streets, in 2024 is when we're projecting to do like the Elm Street connection, because that's when the roundabout's
Okay.
going on County Road 133. So as we're tying some of those types of projects that are coming up sooner now than later.
In 2025 is Highway 2, County 2 in Minnesota,
Mm-hmm.
that expanded intersection, so, the Minnesota State Highway.
So those are like unique projects besides just doing some of our overlay street maintenance type work that we typically do, but, and then eventually we'll have the other part of the community center bonds too, once we get through capital campaign.
So then Tammy, have you worked, how many municipalities do you work with besides us?
30.
And have you seen some communities you work with go from like AA minus to A or AAA to A? I mean, what are you seeing as far as S&P ratings with clients that you work with?
Sure.
And how would you observe our town?
I believe that you are a stable AA minus, meaning I don't see you on the cusp of an upgrade, and I don't see you on the cusp of a downgrade. All things
And you
equal.
say that because why?
Because of the stable finances, because of the economics for the city, the college weighs on that a little bit. And Lori always brings this up on the rating call with S&P to point that out, because you are a college town too, and those students' incomes are not as higher. The other reason I say that is because S&P says that about St. Joe as well, meaning they view St. Joe's rating as very stable. What could affect that is, I won't dig through because I know it by heart, is if your liquidity changed. Let's just say the council, and I'm hypothetically for the viewing audience as an example, said, we're not gonna raise property taxes next year to pay for that inflationary. Instead, let's use some of that fund balance and just wait and see what happens with inflationary. That spend down of fund balance is a credit negative because it takes away your liquidity. You have less flexibility to deal with unforeseen events. S&P, and nor do I, in my experience in working with the city, believe that, at least historically, that the city council would take action like that, but actions like that would have a negative effect on your rating. What could raise it? Continued development in the community, those wealth indices compared to other AA category could give some of that upward movement, but those are longer term impacts of pushing you higher as far as the AA category.
So are we sitting on too much cash? You said we have a lot of liquidity, it gives us a AA minus. Do we have too much in reserves
Good
than what we
question.
should have?
That is always my response to that to council. That's a policy decision. You might say, well, what do you mean by that? It's a policy decision because your rating is one of your factors, and especially when you have plans for issuance of debt, because a solid rating means lower interest rate, but it's not your only consideration. So do you have too much cash or fund balance? That's a council decision. From a rating perspective, it is, you are at the right position for your AA minus rating. A factor that could drive that up higher too, but again, these are policy considerations. You could say, we're gonna build up that fund balance even higher. I work with some communities that have extraordinarily large fund balance liquidity, and they get a bump up from the rating agency because it isn't just a one-term blip, that they've maintained very high balances for very long periods of time.
The state auditor recommends 4 to 6 months in what we call working capital, so kind of those reserves in the general fund to carry forward the next year's budget before state aids and taxes kick in. This last year we were at 6 months of working capital, so at the higher end of that. It kind of fluctuates. We've been between 5 to 6 months, so that's actually been a very positive thing. Like as we're dealing with when COVID hit, we were able to react to that. So we're in the ballpark of what the state auditor recommends, which is also what our fund balance policy says, that we want to end in between 4 to 6 months.
No, I get it, I like it. How much money is that? 6 months, how much is that? Hard dollars.
I think it was right around 1 million, but I don't know off the top of my head, haven't looked
Okay.
at the number in a while.
About 1 million, okay.
Anyone else? Questions? Very good, thank you, Tammy.
Thank you.
Item 6, special events, 6A.
All right, so if the council remembers back in April, hold on, let me switch back to the screen here. There we go. Back in April, the council approved a special event permit for Millstream Arts Festival. And at that time, it was discussed that the permit might be amended, they might go into the alley further, and if that was the case, that they would bring it back to the council for review and consideration. And so in your packet, I do have the updated map. And so the main difference you'll see here is just this extension into the alley. And they're gonna be using a part of the La Playettes parking lot. I did communicate with the owners of the La Playette, and they have approved that part of it. And then the Millstream Arts Festival also has their certificate of liability insurance that has the city and then the law as additional insured for that event.
Questions?
I move to approve the amendment.
Second?
Motion and second to approve the amendment for the special events, Millstream Arts. All those in favor signify, further questions, anyone? Sorry. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 6B,
All right, the second event before you is the Rock for Alzheimer's that is held annually at Bad Habit Brewing Company. It'll take place this year, September 11th, from 12 p.m. to 9 p.m. Staff has reviewed it, and Police Chief Funenstein is requiring one off-duty officer to be present at the event.
I'll move to approve.
Second?
motion and second, special event permit for Rock for Alzheimer's. Further questions or concerns?
Yes.
Yeah,
You first? Go ahead.
this is the second year that they've been doing this? How many years have there been?
We actually just talked, I think it's the fourth year. Mhm.
Okay, and it's, last year it was
It's been
quite
around
huge,
for a while.
even though it was COVID.
Not the Rock.
So
I
is
believe
that
so.
why,
Mhm.
The Alzheimer's.
Dwight, you're asking for, or did you always request for one on there?
It's just always our protocol, the
Okay.
certain size of the event,
Like a
it
rock, yeah.
triggers the use of one officer.
How many people do you think are gonna be there?
I think they put down for what, like 750, so usually between 500 to 1,000, we go with one officer. 1,000 plus is usually 2 or thereabouts,
Any concerns last year, years prior to the
No.
event?
not on my end.
What was it like for sound, obviously with the bands kind of being on the north end there by the business and a couple residents? You see any concerns going there? Do we know if the business has reached out to those people to make them aware that on a Sunday at 9 PM music could be going till then?
We can make it a requirement of the approval.
Okay. I feel like that would be good. I don't know, unless others think differently. If you see the site map, I mean,
Yep.
their stages are right back here on the back end
Yep.
if you pull it up. And that would be my only questions. I know there's a business right there, but I'm pretty sure there's some residentials right here on the back. And you have 2 stages right in the corner. So that would be my only concern. Otherwise, I know usually it's a pretty good event, so.
Question, John, who would you want them to communicate to? Like
Is it-
crew and all those guys?
No,
or
so
the-
back here, if you're looking right here on that.
Like the
Is there
student housing and
something,
stuff?
yeah, is there other people in that area like right now?
Or down
is
Ash?
it-
Well, the
Yeah,
other is, there's a college house there, and one on that, next to
Yeah.
it, and a college rental next to it in the corner.
yep. So, or even across the way.
And these down in
Yeah.
college are rental homes as well, and down Ash.
I'm sure it's not that
Again,
big of
I
a
don't-
problem because it hasn't been,
And
but
it's during the day, right?
it goes
Is
till
that just
9
one
p.m.
till
Goes till
9,
9.
right?
yeah,
1
12 to 9,
yeah.
yep.
Okay.
So that would just be my only concern, especially with past events, and I'm assuming it's been going okay, so those are only my only questions. That's all I have.
Okay,
Well, I'm
Go ahead, Kelly.
Well, we have to move to approve the special event permit for Bad Habit for the Four Rock Alzheimer's on September 11th.
It's been moved in second.
It's been moved in second.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yep.
I'm thinking, how would we amend it to include them contacting it, or
So it
can we
would-
just,
We would have to vote it down and then was that how that, because it's already been moved to this, or?
no, my motion, the motion is to
And then,
amend, include a provision by which
reaching
Bad
out to the-
Habit would
yeah,
reach out to residents
surrounding
within like
neighborhoods.
2-block area or something. I don't know how that, we have to kind of define it. That's why I'm trying to say, I
Right.
don't know how you.
Do you wanna do just abutting properties or
I would say that.
I think that's a start. I
abutting
would say
properties?
that.
Okay,
Okay, just residential or including business as well?
Is
Go ahead.
yeah,
Is
Bob.
Bad Habit having music that day also?
It is a Bad Habit. This
On
is
that-
Bad Habit.
This
This
is
is
bad.
Bad
Habit.
Well, it looks like the bandstands across the alley.
Bad Head is in their parking lot.
Right there.
The band's in their parking lot.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They close off the parking lot.
Yeah,
That's where the
they-
people gather and
Oh,
whatever.
okay.
The bands usually aren't that loud. They're usually acoustic, they're usually, you know what
Well-
I mean? They're not,
Yeah.
I mean, we went last year
Depending
around
on it.
6 and it was comfortable, like you usually see it.
Okay,
The acoustic is on the grass and the electronic is in the parking lot.
Okay, depending on what are they bringing in for music, the regular Mill Street music, or are they bringing in?
right, are they having
This
full
is not
rock
Mill Street.
bands?
This is Rock for Alzheimer's.
Oh, okay, excuse me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is like regular old rock band.
Oh, okay.
Well, they do it on Sundays too. They'll open up, you've seen their bands that they've had there. I don't think it's that loud.
Okay, so
but that's my opinion.
motion
Depending where
is,
you live.
my motion is to amend the current motion to include notification of abutting properties by Bad Habit.
I second.
Motion and second on the amending motion to include notification. Further questions or concerns? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Okay, there's also a motion and second to approve the special event permit. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
A motion does carry, both of them does carry. Thank you, Bill, all very much. Item 7.
Yeah, so Mayor and Council, Heartsick Fundraising presented their report recently on July 19th. After they completed the interviews from folks to gauge input on the community center project, which included fundraising capacity and operations under the YMCA. So the next steps that we discussed at that meeting on the 19th that need to take place sooner rather than later are the name of the project for the marketing fundraising campaign, and as well as where the money will be funneled through, or the donations to where they will be held. So options for council consideration on where to donate are the Central Minnesota Community Foundation. They would charge 2%. The Initiative Foundation, they would charge 2.5%, or we can do it through the St. Cloud area YMCA in a St. Joseph separate account, and there would be no charge with that. So with that being said, Heartsook as well as staff is recommending to do it through the YMCA, and again, in a separate St. Joseph account. Lori would be monitoring that account, and that's really so we could save on that charge. And as far as a naming, to be consistent what we have done so far, we are suggesting that it could be named the St. Joseph Community Center YMCA for the campaign purposes. So tonight, we do need direction and ask for action on those two items.
I'll move affirmative on both items.
So can we define it a little bit? Maybe can we break them up to say,
Right.
I move to hold the funds through the community, or through the YMCA for Community Center for St. Joseph account?
I'll second.
You want two separate actions?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay, motion and second, was that the
that's to hold the
funds?
funds,
Motion and second funds going through YMCA.
but
Other que-
really through we would want it to still say St. Joseph account, correct?
Well, again, I'm not sure how they set
I've
it up.
got questions on
Yes.
that, but do we want to?
Just
Well,
Yeah,
there's,
motion
well, there's a motion and second,
Yeah.
now discussion.
Okay, thank you. With the, oh, thank you. With the, having it at the YMCA, is there any stipulations that we have to enter into to be able to have those funds with them? You know, so per se, because it becomes YMCA,
It's gonna still be earmarked for the St. Joseph Community Center or YMCA
but
or
can
whatever
he
you call it.
utilize that it's all ours?
It's gonna have to be ours, and, part of your motion is designating that and is an official place to hold those funds for us.
Okay,
I simply don't have the capacity, the knowledge to do all the tax forms and the sort of thing that you have to do with a capital campaign and following up with the pledge calendar and things, so
right.
definitely recommending that we need some, foundation of some sort to help us. The 501c3, those that are giving, money, especially the significant amount, well, any amount really, they're looking to donate to a 501c3 and not a government agency, so this
And
is
you're
a
gonna be-
typical way to do, these type of capital campaigns.
And you'll be,
I will still have to monitor it, reconcile it.
okay.
So Lori, how do you know? Like someone sends $1,000 to the Y for the St. Joe Community Center, how are you gonna know
Monthly reporting.
from who?
From the Y.
From the Y?
Wouldn't it be from the Heartsook? Wouldn't
No,
Heartsook-
so we have to, no, it's not gonna
Because
be
you're gonna,
Hartsook.
because you're gonna have
So-
some that are
Oh.
anonymous or smaller donors that might not even go through Heartsook, but Heartsook's gonna do the bulk of the work to ask for the donations.
But you're not on staff at the Y, so who at the Y is actually getting the money and putting it into a separate account that you're gonna
Making
audit?
sure that it's
Yeah.
ours.
Their finance staff will do that.
Do
and
you
they're-
know the finance staff?
I know Greg,
Okay.
but I'm gonna get reports, I mean, I will get reports to be able to reconcile it out and to balance it out. And if I see that pledges aren't coming in when they're supposed to be, I'll be able to ask that question, why aren't they coming in?
Yeah, it's just tying it in. It's not that I don't trust the Y or Greg, it's just like, what is the,
Process.
yeah, what's the process?
Mhm.
When money comes into the Y, someone writes out a check for $5,000 for our community center, you're just gonna get a report, you're gonna get a spreadsheet, you're not gonna actually see it, you're not gonna process the money.
Yeah, I'm not gonna be processing the money. I'm gonna see the reports of who donated what and see that it's there in the bank account. Or I'm gonna get the pledges, here's who's pledged, they're going to give on these dates, and I should be able to follow.
And then who sends out the acknowledgement of a donation? Is that from the Y or
That's
from
gonna come
us?
from the Y. Because there's, certain specifications that they're gonna need for tax purposes, so.
Right. So maybe that's our check, right?
Yeah, because
How
if a
we can-
donor
how
didn't
we
get
can
the
follow,
paperwork.
Like someone said they gave 5, they got a, an acknowledgement for 5.
Correct.
Could I make a suggestion? Could you work with the YMCA and Heartsook to define what that process is?
Certainly.
Just so that we're comfortable that the money's being, I gave 5 and actually Greg took 4
Our,
and
our
I got 1.
expectation is that
Yeah.
we're getting
Yeah.
that report, and
Well,
so tell me
a
what your
report
expectation
or
was
some
and
kind of
vision.
some kind of connection, not just, I got a spreadsheet and there's 5 and there's 5.
Yeah, I want to see,
And there really should be 10 and
Yeah.
10.
I want to see a bank account statement, like they're setting up a separate
Just-
bank account for our
I
money.
agree.
I
I
just-
wanna see that too.
Yeah, I just think
Okay.
we need to define what that process is, so there's some checks and balances, so we're comfortable. And not trying to put more on your plate, but I mean, it'll be a while yet, so I think that definition's necessary.
I agree.
Other questions, concerns?
No,
Motion and
Matt.
second, using YMCA, special St. Joe Community Center YMCA funded, whatever.
With checks and
Account.
balances.
All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion does carry.
The name.
The other thing is the name.
I'll move to name the building St. Joseph Community Center YMCA for campaign purposes.
Second,
Motion and second, naming of the facility St. Joseph Community Center YMCA. Other discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Capital plan. Budget.
So for tonight, like all your meetings, I've had like a little piece to the budget. So tonight's piece, I have the capital equipment from each department, their proposed requests. And then also the debt levy, since we just did the debt management plan, I have that summary in there for you as well. So first going over the capital equipment. The capital improvement plan, which is what the engineers' projects fall under. We showed you those upcoming projects earlier this spring, maybe May, June timeframe, one of your earlier workshops. And the projects that are coming up for 2023, there's an overlay project. That one will be a little bit bigger than what we're doing this year, but not significantly more. But it does have, the Northland Drive piece in it with the sidewalk extension and correcting that storm drain. So it'll be a little bit bigger than what we're dealing with this year, but not significantly. It's not like we're constructing a brand new road. It's just an overlay project with some of those improvements. We'll be doing our capital campaign, obviously. Probably not a lot of design work until we understand what we're really going to be raising for that capital campaign. The Ridgewood lift station, a stationary generator is due. We've been trying to add the stationary generators at the lift stations, especially this is the main lift station heading out of town. We do have a couple mobile generators, but if there's a severe storm or something, they can be used pretty quickly in locations, and we don't have, until we can get a backup generator there, we don't
Right,
want to
where-
be short.
Where's that lift station? Ridgewood Court?
Right over by Beeline.
Yeah, okay, Ridgewood Court, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I do have two mobile generators, which Lori stated, but, so I have more lift stations and water treatment plants without generators than I have mobile generators. So I don't have enough to go around.
Okay, got it.
So obviously, we would put those in peak areas if something came up right now, but we decided a few years back that we would start adding these stationary generators. We did one on Baker Street, so Ridgewood is the next one, and then following the County Road 121 lift station would be in a few years. The other thing is looking at the right-of-way acquisitions for the Elm Street extension. As I said, that would be slated for 2024 when the roundabout goes in on County Road 133. So those are kind of the bigger projects that are coming up for next year. I put down like a list of some possible developments. Some of them aren't saying that for sure they're going through, but they've been posed to us. And with some of those projects comes other infrastructure needs to continue developing those. And so I just wanted to put them down that, to make you aware of those, that it can spur some other items. And the first one that I'll talk about is Trobix busing. We had to do the First Street extension and then just the first part of 24th Avenue Northeast in order for Trobix to work out in that corner. So when that happened, we have a little bit of residual money left over from the industrial park project that we're gonna apply towards that, and then the developer is gonna finish that street of where it's needed, up to what the council had decided for Trobix. So just as an idea, one of those projects that could come up, it could cause other potential infrastructure issues that may fall back on the city's taxpayers or not, or ratepayers, but just to kind of make you aware that there's infrastructure improvements that could come along with that. So I just highlighted some of them that recently had come in, and just what those impacts may be. The park board met on July 25th, and they talked about a couple projects on there.
Hey,
First-
Lori, can I interrupt quick?
Certainly can.
The Merkling property development on First Avenue Northeast, what is that all about? Is that Sunset Manufacturing moving around or something? Or,
I think looking
it,
at a development on a vacant lot up in that area. And preliminary, just looking at what kind of infrastructure would be there to support a development. So I don't know if it's a chicken or egg.
What?
type thing out there, so,
No, Obink is, that's that's like, what is, street is that?
So there's
no.
a portion of First Avenue that does not have connections behind the Lutheran church. That First Ave piece, so we're tying the two together saying, hey, if Merkling would ever develop, that would trigger bringing sewer extension out First Avenue.
So.
And
will
that's
we-
all guided for residential.
So we also extend first from south across Wobegon Trail to make it one big,
And possibly that's what we have to look at, is what makes most sense there to
Okay.
service those areas,
Okay.
so.
I just hadn't heard anything, and that kind of surprised me, but I know that First Avenue connection, I think it's a nice piece if we get it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so
Sorry,
I
didn't
just,
mean to
I
interrupt.
just wanted to bring that to your attention, so
Okay.
you're aware that
Thank you.
things, questions get asked. Sometimes they're not necessarily a project that's ready to go forward or anything, but questions are asked.
Yep.
The park board met on July 25th, and came up with their recommendations. So the first one, the East Park Phase 1 is scheduled to go next year. Nate wrote a grant, and we were awarded a $250,000 grant from the state. We are also on, one of the shorter lists for the LCCMR grant for that, so we'll be presenting for that, grant. And hopefully we can be successful there too.
Nate, when is that award announced?
I'm
Next
not
month?
sure for LCACMR.
Yeah.
I'm not sure of the award date, but our next step is presentation on August 16th.
Okay.
We're one of, I think, 75 proposals, but in our
Okay.
category, 15 of 25
Okay.
were selected.
Is that
So
down at the Capitol? Or
no,
somewhere?
they're doing it all virtual. So we have 5 minutes, and there's no PowerPoints, no handouts. 5 minutes virtual, and then
So
10
just
minutes
So
of
you should,
question.
You should actually do it from the park.
That's a good idea.
Real life show and tell. I like that.
Bet you no one else
Real
knows.
life show and tell.
That's a really good idea.
Here
There
we
we
are
go.
in East Park, there's the water.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, okay, I changed, sorry.
No, that's awesome. No. That's awesome.
You'd win. Okay,
The park
Go ahead.
board's
sorry.
The park board's also talked about, need for some shade at the dog park, possibly replacing the roof at the concession stand, by the softball park. The old concession stand down there.
Is it just the roof or the whole building? I mean, I was just out there today and I know there's cracks in it, but,
Yeah, there's some settling. I'm still working with some contractors to look at that
Okay.
one corner out there.
okay, I know the roof is
And
terrible.
it was scheduled for 22, but
Yeah.
probably will get pushed out to 23?
Those, we'll go in up to those in a second. Those are the two projects that are listed there.
Okay.
The Kleinfelter Trail improvements, we have scheduled for next year to try to fix some of those issues out there. The park board's been looking at doing a full court basketball, in Centennial, keeping the half court, adding the full court, removing dirt volleyball that's, created some maintenance issues for us. So they're looking at that to see if there's potential grants out there to help with that project. And then, the surveillance cameras really are falling under, something that Dwight has been spearheading, looking at surveillance cameras around the city, different buildings and things, so certainly in a couple of the parks as well that we've had some vandalism at. The scheduled for 2022 may get for 2023. I know you took action tonight on the Kleinfelter restrooms. We weren't sure if that was gonna be ready to move forward this year with supply issues and the bid costs, but it sounds like that might be able to still start this summer, this fall.
So, Brian, why is such a big difference between,
I was
Was
waiting
it-
for that question.
yeah, 171 versus 330? What's going
So,
on? Why is it
the
so
big-
different?
The biggest difference is you're looking at a very large company like Bradbury,
Stam.
Stam, where they're gonna have a job soup sitting on that job 24/7. They gotta pay that individual. They're paying huge amounts of overhead. And here Mike Schlungen is a dad and son operation.
So should Mike build our community center? Save us some money?
I can certainly ask if he wants to take it on. Yeah.
Yeah, so we are fortunate to get that bid in.
It is a mom and pop versus corporation kind of bidding. It is.
And then the other thing is, Ryan has been trying to get quotes for removing the bleachers and the fencing out there, so I think you you do have them. It's been taking, it's been a challenge, but I think now you have some quotes to get that done, so.
I got a question
maybe
for
get
that.
that.
So removal of them, we're talking about putting anything back up?
There's been some light conversation, just kind of waiting to see how things play out.
Sure.
You know, how does Rhonda's activities
So all I know.
future look like? Do we look at, you know, if that's not gonna happen, do we look at pickleball courts? It's just,
Well, I look at it as, I thought, you know, having kids in the T-ball and the soft pitch this year, and even people with the soccer, is they were greatly utilized when they were there.
yeah,
With a lot of the kids and the action going on.
I think if next year looks anything like this year, it'll paint the picture for
Yeah,
us.
and I think with this year, at least in my eyes, it was a success with
Oh, God, yeah.
all the kids that were coming out there
Yep.
being there. So
Yep.
I just don't want to tear it down, and then we have that next year,
Right.
and then no one has anywhere to sit.
I'm
I
not
think-
afraid of tearing down the bleachers or that fence because it
Right.
is a hazard.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and Rhonda was, she's letting these pieces move right now because of, like he was talking about, it being able to possibly look at bleachers that do move
Right.
instead of being
Yeah.
concrete. And so it's waiting to see how this pans out.
Sure.
And so I kind of like the pieces just floating here for a little bit to see what actually settles.
Yeah.
But we're hearing you,
Yeah.
and she feels the same way.
No, and again, just being out there firsthand, she's doing great, which by the way, you can put that down with what's happening, but just being out there on Mondays and Tuesdays, the kids are there, parents are showing up, so if it's anything like it was this year, I just don't want to see them tore down and then nothing else get either rebuilt or
Right.
removable. Like, I like that idea of the movable too, but expanding out there and revitalizing it a little bit, so, okay, thanks.
The next, I met with the EDA and Mary Bruner from the CVB. Nate's been attending both those meetings. Kind of looking at what their budget requests are, and it's kind of moving forward. The initiatives the EDA would like to look at is looking at possible lots for a boutique hotel downtown, cleaning up the JR Mobile site. And then CVB is looking at maybe some marketing initiatives, having a couple more events in the year, kind of like go visit this site, you know, go visit this establishment, get your card stamped, more technical than that, but get your card stamped and, you know, kind of do
Win a
those
prize.
things, and maybe do another photo contest, but they're gonna.
Hiring you for their marketing.
Right. They're gonna finalize more of that here in August with their meetings, so, but that's been the discussion so far. The fire board is actually meeting on August 16th, so what you see for, capital for them is kind of just moving forward on the 5-year projects, and they'll get time to weigh in before we go into our preliminary, levy here in September, but
And I know we talked a little bit about this, and then Therese, are we still gonna reach out to the chief to talk about grass rig and like proposals, or isn't that something we were missing still?
Yeah, so Fire Chief Jeff is, he needs to get bids for the grass rig.
Okay.
So that's kind of where we're at with that.
So maybe reaching out to him again, maybe even before, so we have a little more on the 16th to discuss. And especially with 70,000 coming from that van, that'll help drastically.
yeah, so the rescue van, the old rescue van, I know you took action on that. We let it out on bid for 45,000, as a minimum bid. We had a couple interested parties. We ended up only receiving the one bid at 70,000, so we were pleasantly surprised
Awesome.
at that. The new rescue van should be here in about October, Jeff had said, so, we'll rotate those vehicles around. So when it comes to the capital equipment plan, we have 2 equipment certificates. I know we've talked about this a couple times. We have them rolling like every 5 years, and what that does is help stabilizes our levy, so we're not having to move it up and down each year to fund the equipment that needs to be purchased in that year. So in 2023 is an equipment certificate year. You did action a meeting or 2 ago where we can start ordering some of those items ahead of time because of the lag time of supply chain. So, the list of equipment that is under there for 2023 is not all funded by equipment certificate. Some of them, some of those pieces of equipment will be partially funded by equipment certificate. We do put money aside each year for these items, but something like the front end loader that we're replacing, it's hard to put enough money aside to replace that even over a 20-year period that we're trying to use that piece of equipment. It's just at that price, it's just hard without really spiking the levy. So we use that. The equipment certificate is what was implemented in the early 2000s, Bob, something like that, that we started implementing that to kind of help stabilize those spikes.
What about the plow truck there? Brand new one?
No.
Okay.
No.
What's the price on the new front end loader?
Excuse me,
What's the price?
on the front end loader,
Yeah,
was it 291 with the wing and plow?
251, I think, and we
251.
had a trade-in
Oh, that's
on
right,
it,
yeah,
so.
with a $50,000 trade-in.
yeah, well, on the new one, what's the price?
251,
251,000?
With the plow truck though, that's on there.
so the plow truck, that's regular dump truck, plow truck.
Okay.
And then how much has been set aside for
What's that?
through the years, how much has been set aside?
I don't have the number here in front of me.
Curious.
So I will let you know that there's the detail behind all these pieces of equipment. I will create a binder. I try to do this every year with a lot of the budget documents where the operational budget is. We still have to look at the operational budget coming up later this month. So I'll put that all together. I know we kind of just been taking it by piece, here, so.
And then one other one there, Chief, 2 squad cars for the certificate as well for equipment. I think Lori told me a little bit about it, but we have leases coming up to where we'll own. And then I'm assuming with our new maintenance here, or our new mechanic, he'll keep those upkept, right? Awesome.
So we have a total of 7 squads now? 7 squads. They we've been making them last 5 to 6 years. Typically, you'd see between 4 to 6 on a long end, but the police department has taken good care of them to be able to extend that. The miles were, still giving us a little more life.
Has mechanic looked at any of those yet? Derek?
Yep. His first one today. Squad car, that is.
Awesome.
Kevin?
Couple of points. One would be, and this I might be getting too in the weeds, but we hired Derek so that we're not outsourcing it'd be kind of neat to see, like, you've had all these expenses over the years that we're paying this company or TireMax or whatever. Just line those out because we have Derek.
See what the savings
You will
would
see
be.
some adjustments in the operational budget for that, where it'll be salaries versus contracted services.
Yep.
I'd like to contrast those. Second is, when we levy, do we levy, this is a whole different topic, based on property value?
Taxable market value.
Which is shooting up based on that work session we had last week.
The county
Yeah.
assessor has estimated about a 19% increase in
Well, at
taxable
least,
market
no,
value.
mine is going up 40%, the lake property's going up 60%.
Mhm.
So, my takeaway there is if it levies, assessable value goes up, do we maintain our mill rate, or do we reduce that to get into something that's gonna match our budget? Because we're gonna have residents really pissed off next year after these property tax values go up. And maybe we don't need all that extra money.
And we're looking at that when we go through the operations, we'll look at where that's at compared and what the impact is on the mill rate.
But you know what I'm talking about, right?
I do. So
And so we wanna
We might
educate
keep a
our, we
stable
wanna
mill
educate our
rate.
citizens through that newsletter we do every other month or whatever, to say, hey, your property value is going up this, but this is what we're doing with the mill rate.
That's a good idea.
And I
Yeah,
do
that
try
is a
to,
really good
to
idea.
provide that information to them, and certainly when we get into truth and taxation, I have to present those
You know, some
numbers.
people will read it and
There's some of that information is actually on the statements that come out in November. I kinda tell you, here's what the preliminary, levy looks like. It's not final until December, but here's where the preliminary actions are at.
But we tax based on the market value for the city, our levy.
The taxable market value, and so everybody's
At
at
that
a,
time,
No, I know, but it's just,
no, but, month after we finalize our budget, then we get the taxable increase. So we might look at let's just be hypothetical here, a zero tax increase. And we'll be in the paper, zero tax increase, blah, blah, blah. But when you get your tax bill, all of a sudden you're gonna see I'm gonna use 20% type hike. So, and it's not our fault, cause we don't know that number yet.
Yeah.
So, so it's
so where we could have had the flat taxes, yeah. The mill rate, right now I am looking at a flat mill rate, but I'm not to where I'm ready to say that for sure yet, so.
get it. Just communicate it.
Any other questions on the equipment?
Just on the equipment certificates, right? So if we have, and I'm assuming you're gonna put this out, but the proposed 2023 is a 400,000 estimated equipment certificate about, and then just how it breaks down for each piece and where that's gonna go, I would assume is what we'll see.
Yeah, and I thought I put that summary in here, but I may not have.
And it could be,
It is actually in here, towards the end, it's one of the last pages.
okay.
No, it's-
This one.
I know these questions.
Oh, yep, okay. Thank you.
So you can see what I have on there for 2023, and you can see where prior funds were set aside, how much we have basically set in reserves to help pay for that, what the equipment certificate piece of balance is. And then I also, on the top is the 2025 right now, what's kind of in the schedule on the 5-year plan.
Are most of those equipment certificates about that, 400,000?
They actually were a little bit lower. We did reduce it. It originally was closer to that amount, but then after the recession in 2008, we reduced it a little bit because we were losing state aid, was unallocated. So to try to balance everything, we reduced that. We postponed equipment purchases, did what we could, I guess, to get by through that recession. So we've been getting back up to where the rate used to be.
Okay.
Everything costs more too, so,
And then,
What?
of course.
It does?
It does, that's what this guy right here keeps telling me, I need another 100,000, he took that, when Terry said 100,000,
Yeah, now this year it's 200,000.
yeah.
and then, I just got one more, sorry to be a little bit, your 2025 certificate equipment, your body cameras. Hear a lot about body cameras and what we're going and where we're at and where it's awarding. I'm assuming 2025 is to get more, maintain them? Okay.
Yeah, and really, if we add an officer, we're gonna have to add equipment, and so it's kind of the idea of making sure that that's on our radar. If we're gonna add staff, we're gonna have
No,
to,
we have radars, I thought, on here. Just kidding.
yeah.
Good one.
All right, thank you.
Bob?
Yeah, I'm noticing here on the front end loader, we have 195,000 in previous funds.
Some of that's the trade-in value too.
What's that?
Some of that's the trade-in value. Prior funds also includes the trade-in value that we, were
Well,
quoted.
that isn't with the trade-in value plus?
Was around 50,000, but it's like a 251, I think, is what it came in at. Well, it's right there,
Right, but
250,000.
what I'm saying is, what I'm seeing is 195,000 in previous funds that are there allocated.
Previous funds plus the 50,000 quote that we got for the trade-in value.
Okay, so that equals the price of the front end loader, close. So why are we taking $250,000 on a certificate for that?
We're taking 55,000 that we need to,
We're only taking-
55,000 is what is needed to,
Right.
to
So what
finish
happens
the
to the
funding.
other 200,000 on that certificate, that's where,
We'll pay the cash on the other portion of it with the cash that's on hand.
Available.
So you have 195 available, we'll take 55 from the certificate.
oh, okay,
and
that's
then
just
we'll do
equipment and cost, so.
Yep.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
so the
Okay.
third column is what we're
Forget it.
looking at,
You
the
just gotta
equipment
flip it.
certificate.
So your third columns are where we're taking.
All good questions. There are
Yes,
good questions.
understanding, yeah, because it makes sense to me, I'm typing these spreadsheets, so you're just trying to understand them.
Well, especially that one, that's a big one.
Day in and day out.
Yeah, we-
The last piece I had was the debt levy, and I kind of put a summary in here. That summary, actually, we're gonna, I think I can reduce the debt levy a little bit more. First of all, we had a really good bond sale market today, so we just kind of hit the jackpot on the day
Yeah.
for the bond issue. So I am gonna be able to reduce the debt levy a little bit, so you'll maybe have a savings of about 7,000 from what was presented here at the time of the agenda.
Why do you say we had a good sale today? I mean, you get a phone call saying, bing?
It went out to the market today, so we had
So how do you know it was good? I mean, Tammy told you, or what?
because we went out on a pre-pricing sale last week, and
Even better.
even from there to today, we were able to, we actually had multiple bids on some of the maturities of the
Okay.
bond, so we were able to actually reduce the interest rate.
Good. From what to what?
It was maybe like 5 basis points, 10 basis points on a
Good.
couple different other periods, so, for instance, where we issued the bonds at a premium, and that premium I'm gonna roll back into the capital project
Okay.
funds. So I can say, like, for the community center, when we went to the pre-sale last week, that premium was estimated to be 390,000. After the sale today with the bids that came in,
Yep.
we were able to set that premium at 402,000. So that's how much of a change in just a couple days in the market. And it has to do with
Yeah,
the feds
market.
increasing the rate, the
Yeah.
long-term rate going down, the 10-year treasury. Very few munis on the market today, so there hasn't been a lot in the Midwest recently either, so the Midwest is always attractive for munis. So we just kinda hit the right day.
Well, one of the biggest assets we have as a community is a AA- rating. I mean, that is huge. We have to
Stands out where
appreciate-
people, yeah,
Yeah, banks wanna buy our paper. That's a big deal to be AA-.
You know, I looked at it, I thought, I mean, from A minus up, right? There's 307 cities, she said. So that makes us the top 35%. I mean, and it's even more up to the AA, which I thought was pretty insane with how many cities we have in the state of Minnesota, so.
wanna maintain that.
Yeah.
We don't wanna screw that up.
Yep.
right, trying to.
Good job,
That's the goal.
Lori, yes, thank
Just to
you.
say thanks
Lori,
to our staff.
thank you.
No
And a lot
pressure
of
there,
this
Lori.
is like sharing even information like this budget and projected, projects that are coming up here. They ask all those questions, what's coming up?
Perfect.
Very good. No, you guys, that's good. I lost track. Item 9, downtown 2-hour parking.
Discussion or motion?
Well,
Discuss
we
any
discussed that at a work
project.
session, we tabled it because it wasn't added to the last agenda, and now here we are, giving direction. Discussing, giving direction. As you may recall, we have 2-hour parking on Minnesota Street. We do not have it on College Avenue North. I've heard from businesses that would like the same 2-hour parking on their street. I think we have enough signs to accommodate them. And even if not enforceable, like Bob would say, you certainly can't enforce it if the signs are not.
From, just from me talking to people and other people talking to people and sharing what they know, the only parking issue that's out there now is by the post office because of the influx of business there. So I would suggest that we would, go for putting 15-minute parking on both sides of the street by the post office there from, I'm not sure what the hours are. You know, I don't see any positive with putting 2-hour parking on any of the other streets because the only complaint that, or only concern that I got about business in downtown was, some employees from a business that doesn't have any parking on the streets all day. That's about the only concern. Everybody else, nobody's complaining unless you wanna
Yeah, we'll-
share who's complaining. I don't know.
Yeah, what businesses, I guess, reached out to you? Do you know?
What's
I
that?
do.
Yeah,
I do,
just asked what
but-
businesses
and-
reached out.
And, so I could ask the same thing, who's complaining about parking down by the post office?
Numerous citizens.
So we have business.
Do you want names? I'll give you
No,
names.
I don't, I'm just
Well,
saying,
I
all
I
I'm
don't
saying
hate
is,
that idea, but
I did a walk. So Friday when I was doing the headshots, I actually walked into each business down there. And I talked to each one of them. And I said, how do you feel about this? How do you, and that was one of them. Gary's Pizza was actually, that looks like a parking spot right there, so that was a situation. But when I look at it, it's like, I get it, the thing is when you come down Minnesota, there's so many signs, if they're not hiding behind a tree, it was kind of like when we were talking about that, they get lost, it's like, I don't even wanna look at the sign.
how do you enforce it?
And so, and then when you go down that street, our sidewalks are so small. And so we're taking, where are we gonna stick those 2-hour signs? And then we're not gonna be able to, Dwight, I'm sure, is just so excited to be able to, take care of that for us. And so, oh, thank you. And so, that would be my concern, and everybody else was like, I was actually quite impressed with the businesses when they were saying, you know what, we get it, the only thing that's really bothering us, of course, is this particular business that is landlocked, can't get their employees to park, so they're parking on that street because it doesn't have a 2-hour parking, okay? And so, but how do we instill that? How, are they still gonna park there? So I think we need to look at this a little bit bigger in the sense of how can we address that then? And be able to, can we put painting signs for Gary's Pizza and say no parking there or something? Could we talk to that business that has the employees parking on that street and say, can we talk with the church, or I don't know? Because that's the only thing I'm hearing from all the businesses down those 2 streets was that they're parking straight in front of the businesses and
there's two
for
of
all
them,
day.
Bodids.
Bodids too.
Yeah.
Cause they'll park in front of Bodids and go across the street and stay there all night, whatever.
It's a day business that they're saying that they have they've nicely tried to ask them, they have shared. And so I think that would be my concern is, okay, if we do the 2-hour, is it still gonna deterrent them from parking there, those particular people? Or
I
not?
guess-
So how do we, I think there's still gonna be a problem if we stick those
Right.
signs up.
I guess the biggest question too that I have is, if you put them up, how many tickets are you writing for the other 2-hour parking?
Oh, you think
None.
we can?
None.
Yeah.
How are
But
you
it-
monitoring it?
Well,
And,
they-
how
and
is
the
it gonna be
businesses
enforced?
on Minnesota
if they,
Street,
if they see the
they don't
sign,
have problems
they
with
might
it.
heed the sign. Know what I mean?
Yeah.
If they don't see the sign, there's nothing we can do, and nobody's gonna heed blank. Where on Minnesota, at least it's there, people can see it, they may read it. I'm not saying it's enforceable, I'm not. I'm just saying it gives people on College Avenue the same luxury that they do on Minnesota. And the same is true if you put 15-minute parking in front of post office. How are you gonna enforce it? Same thing with the college, if you don't wanna put 2-hour parking there and you put 15-minute
Well,
parking there.
I'd like to know who.
Hold on,
I'd like to
let me
know-
finish.
Okay,
The same argument applies to 15-minute parking as it does for 2-hour parking.
okay, so we don't put up any signs.
Well, then we should take down the 2-hour parking on Minnesota.
Yeah, it's not enforced. I mean, how many 24-hour
That's what I
parking?
said, how many are
I don't,
tickets have
I don't
an
like
issue?
that rule at all, but
Well, let's take them all down.
Well, the streets on Minnesota is larger than this, on College. I mean, there is a difference. I mean, if you look at the pictures, you've got a larger sidewalk on Minnesota compared to this one. And you have to be strategic about putting those signs up there. And I think it's not gonna have, the particular problem I'm hearing is day employees parking on that. The businesses, all of them had said, you know what, we work together, we're cramped down here, and that was the only thing that they really noticed was that those particular people, employees parking during the day. It wasn't a night thing, they don't mind patrons parking and walking and eating here and drinking over there and staying there, you know what I mean? It was that particular situation that I heard from each one of them.
As far as the signing goes, we do have special brackets that we put on our decorative light poles, and we do have some
And you
signage
put it on the
hanging on
outside.
it, yeah. So.
And how
just-
many
just to
do
answer
we
that
have?
question. What's that?
How many do we have?
Brackets?
No, signs in the brackets, I mean,
Oh, I think I've got, what did I say?
4 or 5.
4 to 5 signs, but brackets, we have.
So you're saying use those 4 or 5 to
Two on each
repurpose it? It's
side?
not gonna be a huge fiscally,
No, not long. So do we have any 15-minute parking signs?
because we could do that, I mean.
Well, I'm just saying,
I don't-
if we're,
Seriously,
if we're
I don't
doing
hate
that,
Bob's idea
I-
either.
I don't, I think that's probably a good idea.
Because I agree with you too,
well, I would
Bob.
say
That's
on,
a
I would say
highly
on
trafficked
the
area.
post
In front of the post
office.
office.
That's where the
Yeah.
problem is.
Yeah.
That's where
one of them.
most of the
Yeah.
citizen complaints are coming from. They
Well, I
aren't
just
coming
went
from
there-
College Avenue.
Well, I just went there on Saturday too, like, in the
Yeah.
morning, and it was like,
Yeah.
whoa. But
Well, I wouldn't say both sides of the post office, I'd say on the
At least
post
the one, the
office,
post
yeah,
office side
on the
for
post
sure.
office
And then,
side,
you
yeah.
know, the point is, no one's using the parking lots that the businesses have. They all have parking lots, except for the one insurance company uptown. But that's been there for 40, 50 years already.
So do you
know?
have 15-minute
All the rest
parking
of them
signs?
have parking lots.
You know, I do, I just don't know how many,
Do you seriously?
yeah.
It's interesting, okay.
You know, it's just a matter of people using the designated parking that each business has.
Nate, can you
And
go
then
back to
public
the one
parking
in
is
front of
public
Jolly
parking.
Alley for me?
You know, everybody has the right to park on the street.
Well, again,
They do.
I don't, like,
And it's
again,
not-
with,
It's not an extension of the
Right.
business parking.
right. Well, and again, I don't hate the idea of at least putting it up as a deterrent, as long as we don't have to put in a pole. And again,
Right.
you know what I'm
If it's
saying? If
coming
you
up
can add
already,
it
the
to
post, yeah.
that post, it wouldn't be horrible, but it could be another deterrent, but,
I guess we
you know,
can
you
see
got a
what
slow
happens.
day, grab some chalk.
You could sit in front of the post office or in front of the Legion and write U-turns all day long, and those are already posted, so
know.
if
Yeah.
I know.
there's somebody
I'm just
there.
saying, I know.
So
Easy
why,
money
you
if we
know,
need it, but, just saying. Again, I don't hate the idea as long as we can put it on the pole. I think I was with you, it's just one more thing you don't want in the sidewalk.
And I'm with you, Kelly. I hate signs. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
opposed to signs. I am.
Yeah.
We
Well,
have
if we can
signs,
enforce it, yeah.
well, but I agree with Bob. You know, if
I like
the
the
more and more
15.
that they get busy on, in front of the post office, we should do something there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Agree.
you know, that's not even ours, but we should allow people service to get in and get their mail and stuff, so.
Yeah, I do get
Yeah,
a fair amount of constructive criticism for the
Yeah.
post office.
constructed,
I
Chris.
mean, isn't that a conversation with Shannon? At the end of the day?
You know, the first
Maybe.
week K-Power opened, it was terrible. So it was about educating their clientele, which I think they've done a pretty good job at.
Yeah.
But it's just I think it's the business in general that's moving that direction now. And you know, the people that are used to coming in and out, getting their mail in the morning, you know.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
you know,
they're
that's,
usually-
that's me, but it's only like 1 out of 10 times, like I'm ticked off because I can't park where I
Right.
wanna park.
Run in.
It's not
And-
every single moment.
And we have had that conversation with Shannon, and it's actually funny that it was brought up about the 15 minutes, because that was actually one thing she had thrown out there too, is if there's a ability to put like 15, 20-minute parking or something in front of the post office.
I think it's.
The issue
I think
that
too.
It's not even
the-
15, 20 minutes, it's just tell her clients not to park there.
yeah, so that's a constant thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but she's
so
always gonna
Tell
have
them,
new
but they might
clients
not,
though.
yeah.
I'd rather
Yeah.
have the sign there.
it's a
Yeah.
constant battle, because folks often will just pull up to the first spot they see, and often that's the one right in
Yep.
front of the business. So
Okay.
they have got that word out, and they are continuing to hammer on that. I have got on them about that, so hopefully we'll see a little bit more utilization in that rear. So.
What Kelly said is really, you know, right on. And Brian said the same thing. As businesses are starting to take over like the residential areas, we really do need to look at the long-term responsibility of where you can and can't park and all
Yeah.
those things. Cause, I mean, we see that shift happening both ways, and it's only gonna get worse up on College, on the other side of 75. So the long-term look at how we manage parking, off-street, on-street parking is tantamount to getting more people available and moving around, so.
And it's a good problem to have.
It is, it's
Right,
an excellent.
right.
Doing stuff. You
Right.
just have to manage it.
We have
So-
to- Yeah, Bob.
Since we're talking about parking, I gotta address this publicly about one complaint that I got about parking was that, some of the newer parking lots that are made aren't hard surfaced. When the previous people that I've talked to, they've had to hard surface theirs. So they were kind of wondering why there is no hard surface.
It will be hard surface.
Okay,
Yep.
I just
Isn't
had
it-
to ask.
isn't it a
It will
requirement?
be.
I thought,
Huh.
Yeah.
It is,
Yep.
it's a requirement,
Yeah.
I'm sure
Yep.
it's a requirement.
Yep. It's
I
on
just
the
wanted to
radar.
cover my butt.
Yep, you're good.
And speaking of parking and that, so one thing that I want to talk about with the planning commission next week is just the idea of a parking type of study and type of, looking at the long-term growth of the city. We're getting so much redevelopment occurring that I'd rather get in front of this than fall behind of that. So we're gonna have some discussion at the planning commission next week, just talk about parking
Trying to
studies.
find some land if there is any in building a parking.
ramp.
We don't have any room for parking.
No, I was
Not,
gonna,
Ramp.
not a ramp, what about a
Both
ramp?
buildings.
SEH did a study
Just
about
define
4
it if
years
you
ago
could.
on different options and how to park in the downtown block areas. And I think that's the same one that, how the 10-foot corners things and how they're arranged. So you might wanna touch base with Randy. They did a study about 4 years ago and looked at
Okay.
different options for parking downtown.
And dumpster enclosures. Bring that up.
Hey,
We're on
well,
it, we're on it.
We
a
kinda
good idea,
migrated
too.
off the topic here a
Okay.
little bit, but.
Well, so,
Well, it's
so,
good.
You brought up planning and.
I like it too.
So we agreed to put the 2-hour sign on
mean,
the
if-
posts
yeah,
and
I
a
think
15-minute
it's
in front of the post office, right?
I think that's,
I think
Is that
so.
okay?
I'm good with that.
I'm
Cause you
good.
said about 4 of them there, right? I think that's a good idea.
okay,
Okay. We don't have to move or,
I don't think so. Do we need a move?
Not if it's by consensus.
By consensus, we're good, 15-minute parking.
Or if you want to
I
take a
just
vote,
have to
it's
add
fine
my
too.
opinion on that. I think it's a waste of material, time, and even the conversation when it's not enforceable just by past practices.
well,
Well,
it's
if we-
enforceable. It's enforceable.
Well, it's gonna cost us. I'm looking at the whole, whole round picture.
So would the
It's
fifth,
enforceable, but, how much do you wanna spend on something like that?
How much is a parking
same is
ticket?
true with 15-minute parking, Bob.
Okay?
How much is
I'm
it?
not talking
Almost,
about that.
almost
I'm
all of our
talking
parking
about
tickets are a
the,
minimum of $20.
But
Maybe
that's the
25
same
now.
concept there.
Did we go?
All right,
Can I ask one real quick?
yeah, go.
How many parking tickets do you write a year?
That I do not know, but if you
you
include
find
winter
out?
parking tickets,
parking.
there's a lot.
Well, how about that with winter parking? Okay,
Okay,
okay.
That's the next one we're gonna eliminate.
all right, mayor reports, item 10, maybe. So just a couple of quick items. I got a call the other day about somebody who was digging wildflowers out of our pond beds.
What pond bed?
One of the holding ponds. So I passed on to Therese, I don't know if Ryan or Dwight got involved. We're gonna have some education in our next newsletter, right? I don't know how it's gonna be phrased, but it's not good to dig wildflowers out of our holding ponds. And then I also prompted the chief of police and Therese about mobility carts. I sit in front of Serenity on Seventh, and pretty much every day, we see these mobility carts, and they don't take the path, they take the road. And they go down like Minnesota and Coburn's and come back, and I said, we should evaluate how mobility, I don't mind four-wheelers or golf carts, but these are like little itty-bitty mobility carts. We should, again, re-educate the public and change our ordinance perhaps, because they're dangerous. I mean, they're going like 1 mile an hour dangerous across all
But
the roads.
that's, I'm sorry, I can't, that's like somebody walking. That's their means of walking, they can't walk. You know what I
get it,
mean?
But we have carts,
So-
we have trails and sidewalks and.
Well, anytime I've seen them, they've been trying to follow our sidewalks. I haven't seen one that have been going down the road I haven't anyways.
I see them every day.
Well, then let's talk about ATVs and 4x4s.
That's a whole.
Yeah, that's a whole different thing. I
Coming
just,
down the road in caravans down 121 or 2.
all right. I wanna thank Kelly for her expertise in taking snapshots, everybody. She did a great job.
You got my
I
good
want-
sign.
Portraits.
What I want is retakes, cause all of mine are terrible. No, I don't know.
Honey, you gotta smile,
I
pumpkin.
know, I got it,
Yeah,
I
you
got
gotta smile.
I
You
got
know,
it.
I can't do that, you gotta do that.
Okay, CGMC conference was last week, and there's a new fee schedule coming out, they're raising rates. They're, going to be, yeah, it's something like that, 3%. And, a lot of that funding is gonna go to PTSD, duty disability actions. The real good news that came out of CGMC was that Osakis has been litigating MPCA for water pollutants and water quality, phosphates in the water and some kind of MPCA regulations. And, they sued the MPCA saying it's arbitrary, and then they won. MPCA, filed a, what do you call it when you?
Counterclaim.
Well, no, they took it up to the next court. They took it up, they appealed it. They appealed it to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, nah, Osakis is right, you lost the lawsuit. So that was a really big win for all the small cities and the MPCA and some of the litigation that the CGMC's been doing in favor of getting MPCA back to what it should be doing. Anyway, can you put this up there, please? So last thing I had, and there's been a lot of talk about this, at least the mayors and some of the redistricting things going on. We have 3 precincts right now. And many cities, this is, again, what happened this year, wouldn't happen for a couple of years, but something we should consider or at least kick around a little bit is having different counselors represent the different precincts, like a ward system. Right now, the mayor and 3 counselors are in precinct 2, Bob's in precinct 1, there's nobody in precinct 3. Variety, Litchfield does it, Little Falls does it, most towns 5,000 and greater will do it or have it in place. Nothing you can do today, but I think we should consider it, like one from each and then an at-large or something like that. And there's some rules of the road that I sent off to Therese and Kayla on how it would happen, kind of what you'd follow the Minnesota state statutes and stuff like that. I think long-term, it's something we should consider as a group. It's the council agrees upon it, I mean, the residents don't, but it wouldn't happen this year, wouldn't happen till the next election cycle, which is 2 years from now, so. I think this came to our light because now we have 2 senators and 2 legislators, and we don't really have anybody in precinct 3. I don't know if that's gonna be, but I think precinct 2 is the one that's gonna grow. Precinct 1 potentially has a chance to grow, and depending upon how far Northland goes, would change the direction. But I just wanted to bring that to your attention. No action now, just something we should consider, at least have some discussion as we go forward.
Well, is there information we can read? Where can we
Oh,
go
yeah.
to?
Yeah, I
Where
mean, I
can we
sent it to Kayla and
Okay.
Therese, there were like a couple of packets, Minnesota state statutes and stuff. You could send that out to them,
Okay.
counselors.
We can do that.
Okay.
So precinct 1 is for the senators and the,
Precinct
reps
1, this
are to the west?
precinct, no,
Precinct
I'm-
1
I'm-
and
I'm trying to
3
figure
are in
out the,
13.
state
Precinct-
reps.
precinct,
You're with Jeff Howe and you're with,
precinct 1 and 3
I just think
are
it's fun.
District 13. Precinct 2, is that
It's
right?
14.
Is
Correct.
14,
Yep.
right? That's St. Cloud and in.
Correct,
We have 3 different precincts for polling and voting, correct?
correct.
And that's based on, census data and all that.
Number, yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
Right, that I know, but I'm trying to find the district, the
It's,
redistricting.
it really is County 75 and 121, right?
Yep, so if you look at that map, Bob,
Yeah.
everything in precinct 1, so that's all west
Yeah,
of
that's what I was-
college. But then also it includes precinct 3. So 1 and 3 are District 13.
And 2 and Wade Park,
Yep.
St. Cloud is 14.
They basically took our most, because that's our most
Okay, so
populated
1 and
precinct.
3 1 and 3 are in the same district.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep, 13.
okay.
Crazy. Yeah,
And again, that's probably
So
some
4 of
education
us are one,
we should
maybe. I
have to
know
send
it.
out maybe prior to voting as well.
What's that?
District 13, District 14, so people know who their new
Oh,
representatives
I got a
might be.
card in the mail saying where I'm supposed to go.
Yeah,
Did you?
I think the Secretary of State sent
Oh,
out
did that. Oh,
that postcard.
Yep.
Mhm.
All right.
Can I make a comment?
Oh, you're absolutely.
I mean,
make
in
comment.
general, I'm not in favor of this ward system that you just proposed,
Okay.
just to be on the record. I
And,
mean,
and,
we're
I-
too
and
small, so much of the people that vote are college students, I mean,
I'm kind of
I
with you,
just-
you, Kevin. I look at it as precinct 2 is a big chunk of our population.
I don't care precinct 1, 2, or 3, just as
I'm
far
just-
as
yeah.
running for council. The fact that we're, I don't know, you call it at large, or what is our system if we don't
At
have
large.
wards? At large?
You-
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all at large. You want me to read 1 and 11 and 12 separately, or how do you want to do this?
Yeah, yep, so they'll make the motion for the
Okay.
first one.
Item 11, pursuant to Minnesota State Statute 13D05 subdivision 3C3, City Council is going to enter into closed session to develop an offer to purchase real estate at 13 Second Avenue Northwest.
I'll move for closed meeting.
Second.
Motion and second to move into a closed meeting. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Immediately following that closed meeting, we'll move into another pursuant to Minnesota State Statute 13D05 subdivision 3C3. The city council will also enter into a closed session to consider purchasing a portion of parcel 84.53360.006.
I'll move.
Second.
Motion and second, item 12, another closed session. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? We are moving into closed session.
Same.
Same place. No.
Two it is.
I move to adjourn.
Motion and second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you all very much.